Hello, hello. Nice to here. Hope you're all having a good day today. And I'm bringing you a knife review. And rhyming, apparently. Today we're looking at the Sharp by Design Mini Chicane Production and Dog already. He's chimed in. Hello, dog. Production knife made by Riot. And, yeah. This is a bit more stylized and a bit more subjective than a lot of Sharp by Design knives. 100%. That trailing point is not something that everybody's going to love, but I absolutely love it. I really love this one. So let's just take a quick look. We've got M390, Brian Edo's logo, 6-gun pivot. It's on bearings. Why can't I think bearings? With a trailing point blade, his proprietary D10 system, well, actually I don't think it is proprietary, but he created his own D10 system. Very lightly contoured, but they are technically contoured scales. Alutex, silver twill, carbon fiber, or whatever you want to call it. I think it's the same thing. Inlays, titanium, frame lock. Let's cover specs so that we can talk about this thing in a little bit more depth after that. Blade length. About 3 and... It's about 3 3/8. Overall length is a little bit tricky. It's a 7 5/8. It's a tiny, like a hair over that. Handle length is a hair over 4 1/4. So actually, pretty good ratios. There's almost always pretty good ratios with Sharp by Design knives. Blade to handle is usually pretty solid there. Comparison to the Civivi Elementum and the Civivi Conspirator for your small and full-size knife. It's not huge. It is pretty heavily, pretty straightforward, almost directly in between them. Maybe a little bit closer to this one, but of course it's got a lot of curvature to it. So it's got a presence, but it's not a particularly large knife. I mean, it is called the Mini Chicane, right? Now, the curvature does create a situation where, no matter how you look at it, even if you put things straight in line, it's sticking out a decent amount. It's relatively tall, though I would be surprised. Yeah, nowhere is it even as close to a paramilitary 2 or PM2, whatever you want to call it. So even then, it's certainly pocketable. Like if you look at the angle that it's at, the tallest it's ever going to be is right here, and it's still not PM2 size. It's also pretty thin. It's not the thickest knife in the world. Let's see. Yeah, it's a tiny bit thicker than the Elementum, which is, quite a thin knife in general. I did say it was contoured, but very lightly, as you can see. It's a very light contour, and it seems to actually shift a little bit. Like, from right here, it almost looks almost flat, but the contouring actually follows a line where it's more flat right here, and then it starts coming in with the contouring, which is quite interesting. It's quite nice. It adds some depth and dimension to the handles, despite them being relatively flat. They are indeed still technically contoured. Let's get a weight. 3.42 ounces, so very close to 1 ounce an inch. Very, very good on the ratios, as I said. Yeah, this is not a hard knife to carry whatsoever. thickness, at its thickest, it is 460 thousandths, so still well under half an inch. At its thickest, as far as like, yeah. In fact, I think the Elementum is 450. Yeah, it's really close to the Elementum in thickness. Blade stock, 120. I'm guessing they were going for 125 thousandths. Quite thin. Quite nice. And behind the edge, this one has not been sharpened. It hasn't actually been used that much. It's made it into my rotation, but it hasn't seen a lot of use. No way. No, hold on now. Like, wow, 10 or 9 thousandths behind the edge. It's really thin behind the edge. It does get thicker up at the tip. It does seem to, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of it. I can't think of words today. Words are not my friends. It's thinner, gets thicker. Yeah. Sure, why not? I apparently can't think at all today because I'm like stuck. What do I do next? Handle space. You pretty much actually have almost 2 AA batteries. Not quite, but almost. Is this a T8? Does appear to be. T8 pivot. T8 body. Oh, T8's all around. Maybe the clip is T6, but you can't be reverse it, so it doesn't really matter. You're only and now I'm losing my voice. Wow, this is going horribly. Yeah. You're only interacting with T8s, which is wonderful to see. And now that we're done the horrible section of the specs, let's see if I can taper, that's the word, taper. My word, I'm terrible today. Okay. You'd think I was drunk. I'm not drunk, I assure you. Okay, let's talk about this thing, and quickly, because I'm apparently losing my mind. Up here you got a heavy, it's a belt satin, but it's a really attractive heavy one. Riot definitely knows what they're doing there. You, of course, have this trailing point tip, upswept trailing point tip, which is kind of what makes it maybe not for everyone. It's not as universally useful. You can get to the tip, but you have to go kind of up high. Let's be honest. That is much more well-rounded in terms of use shape for the blade. But this is a really good drawing, slicer, and stuff like that. There's a lot this can do, and it can do it well, and honestly, as sharp as that tip is, you could probably just do this and save your edge for opening things up. It's more, let me get a little oil out here. I put a little bit of oil on the lock face because it's was a little dry in there before my review started, so. It's very useful, but it is a little bit more subjective, and the aesthetics, I know a lot of people don't necessarily want or love those trailing points, especially those who really are looking for use. That it's kind of the opposite of where you would normally go. If you have something down here, a little bit lower, usually you have more varied options, right, for use. Hello. Again, talking, my nemesis today. One thing that I've noticed is interesting on this one is the edge is actually thicker back here at the heel, the bevel, and then it gets thinner right around here and carries out. At first I thought it was like a major issue and everything, or major mistake, but if you actually look, it kind of does the same thing on this side. It's a little bit wonky, but I don't know if that's intentional or not, mind you. But it actually does the same thing from side to side. So, if it's not intentional, they did it evenly enough that it seems intentional. Very interesting. Plunge grind. I mean, the plunge grind could always be better back here, but it ends here. You have, like, all of this life to sharpen off, which is more than enough life. Oh, it also has, like, a hand satin kind of on the flats. Good functional jimping. Not my favorite kind of jimping with the wire jimping, but it works. Yeah, it works. Another little detail that I really like is how they ended this swedge. You got flat, and it just comes down to the swedge gets really fine and comes down into there. Which can't. And then they chamfered right here, so it gives it a very interesting look. It's a lot more complex and makes the blade just that little bit more. And they did it pretty much the same on both sides, and it looks pretty darn great. Maybe if you want to get nitpicky, it's a hair shorter on this side, but I mean, it's really done well. 6-gun pivot, or 6-shooter pivot, as almost, as far as I know, all Sharp Eye designs. And, of course, the blade is pretty much completely sterile, which is another reason why I like his designs. His logo is right there. Moving on from the blade, finally, I guess. The flipper tab is a little bit more subdued than some of his, and I think this is, like, perfect, honestly. It's round a little bit more. It feels like an evolution. It's even more comfortable than almost any of his before, and it has a really good angle that works just perfectly fine. Even though it's, like, low to the pivot, it somehow just works. His Sharp by Design, Brian Nadeau's, his flippers, his detent always works. It always feels very similar. It's always got a different, very unique sort of, if you've never felt it, it's a very different feel than any other flipper tab. It's a consistent pop. It works. It just works. The titanium here looks like it's been, I guess, probably, I'd call that, I'm not sure if it's a PVD. No, it kind of looks like a stone wash, like a black stone wash. A black wash, I guess, of some sort. Yeah. And, of course, the around the pivot is lipped, as pretty frequently his are. The handle is a clamshell construction, meeting only here, which that's, there's no liners, there's no standoffs, it's the frame that meets itself, which is adding complexity and difficulty, and Riot pulls it off every time, because I think his specs that he sends them just must be fantastic. The inlay is some of the best inlay work I think I've ever felt. You can barely feel the transition. It has no gaps. It is great. It also terminates with the inlay poking out a little bit there. Not poking out, it's perfectly flush. In fact, I cannot find it. Not really. But you can see a little bit of that side cut of that silver twill, which is really a nice touch. I like it. The lock bar is... Well, first of all, let's take a quick look in there. Yeah, you can actually see the nub pretty well. See, that's a nub. It's a specifically shaped nub instead of a detent ball, and that's what your detent is, and that's what gives you its unique feeling. Every Sharp by Design has that. Something else that I've noticed every Sharp by Design has is that while the lock bar itself may not protrude very much, he makes the protrusion for the lock bar for access, which is still pretty darn great. You can get it from the side. That is in fact the lock bar insert that sticks out and has this little platform and area for you to make contact with. It works. And he always does that as well. So yeah, lock bar insert, lock bar in there, no, detent nub in there on the lock bar. The stop pin is nothing to be actually worried about because it's a flipper knife and it lands shouldered up there and there in your opening, nowhere near the edge. So you're good there. Okay, now that's bugging me. Get out of the knife, you stinky little... Can you even see it? Yeah, see that little dot. I don't know why that's bugging me so much, but it is. It's gone. Yay. The final thing of note to talk about is the pocket clip here, and I think this is one of the best pocket clips he's done. It's a little bit differently shaped. It doesn't seem to have quite as much harsh tension as Sharp by Design's pocket clips often do. It's just as functional, and it's super comfortable. Like, sometimes the one thing you could say is Sharp by Design's pocket clips could use a chamfer or a rounding around them, especially considering how rounded all the edges are on the knife. Like, this isn't even a chamfer, this is just straight up rounded. Yeah. They kind of have hard edges, and sometimes you can feel them. This is one of the most comfortable clips he's done. This is also, like, his most recent design, so I guess it's evolving every time. But this is a really, really good clip. It's still a little stiff, but not as bad, and it's super functional. Even though it doesn't have a high bill, it does work. Maybe the thickest of pants will have some issues with that, but it is what it is. Honestly, it's a pretty straightforward design that is complicated and made more interesting by the... No. The knife is straightforward, but the design makes it complicated, and the execution and the little details, as always with Sharp by Design knives, are where this thing sings. And it sings. I really love these ergos. I'm super comfortable in these ergos. There's something about this knife that I don't know if it was ever as popular. In fact, I'm almost certain, in fact, I am certain, that you can get a couple versions of this knife still on Sharp by Design's website, which I'll link. So I don't think this one was as popular as some of his. It's a little more subjective, but I think this is an unsung one. This one's really good. It's super comfortable. Yes, it tapers down to thinner there, which is unusual because you don't normally want that, but the way it angles and it just locks in your hand, the ergos are as comfortable as ever, if not more so, with this slightly wider pocket clip that just sort of somehow works on this knife. Yeah, this is wonderful. And the price point on this knife is also actually pretty wonderful for the level of execution. It's an expensive knife, but whereas I had a complaint for how simplistic and the level of execution on a couple knives recently, this knife was $375. I think you can get them now for about $350 on his website. In fact, there's one variant, the plain one, in plain carbon fiber and plain titanium, or just, I guess, stonewashed titanium. I think that's a $300. Those are excellent prices. Expensive. It's a premium knife all day. But, yeah, this is a knife that justifies it. You've got a collab, you've got Riot at its best, which again, he must send special specs or something to re-op because his always come out so perfect and so consistent in my experience, and I have like 6 or 7 of his knives. The execution, the collab, the details, the touches, the contouring, the inlays and stuff. For $375 even originally, and $350 that I think you can pretty much get them now. Yeah, this is a win. I really like this knife. I do. And of course, we're perfectly centered with no play. Should mention that. And you can almost always see, this one hides it well, but there is the seam that goes there. So you can definitely tell when it's not centered, right? I've never had trouble soldering any of his knives. Any Sharp by Design knife has never given me any issue. So, yeah, tolerances are good. Execution's good. I like the aesthetic and style. I think this is a bit of a sleeper that really deserved even more attention than it got, and I enjoy having it. So I'm going to end things here and say thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, comment. I really need to say that earlier in the video. Of course I do. And end things here with the mini chicane. See you later, guys. Have a good day.